The Sentinel is known to be reliable, fearless, disciplined, consistent, courageous, motivated, and skillful.
So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances.
All these qualities start from the mind. Your mind can be your worst enemy or your most powerful weapon.
The world becomes your library to help you to become better at your craft.
Is this the dagger?
Learn how to achieve greatness and tap into the Sentinel mindset.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome on this wonderful day today. We have a very special guest. This guest we actually have known of for quite some time, so I'm very, very happy that we had him on. We actually went and visited his incredible facilities. When was that, Mike?
I have no clue. Was it June?
Was it June we came down?
June,
Yeah,
I think.
I think it was about June.
In Ottawa.
Okay. And
In
who
the
we're
nation's capital.
That's right, in the nation's capital. And who we're talking about is Chris Mandigma. Now, did I say that properly?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
awesome.
And his whole operation is Tersha. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, Tersha Tactical.
Tersha Tactical.
Yeah.
And
You
we're
got
gonna
the pronunciation right.
Yeah, and we're gonna go right into all those specifics very shortly. But first of all, Chris, thank you so much for coming down, man.
No, thank you for inviting me, guys.
Amazing.
Are we
Awesome,
technically
thank you.
down? We're below Ottawa? Technically on the map?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But you've been in Ottawa for some time now, but you obviously never grew up in Ottawa, right?
That's right, yeah. I was actually born and raised in Toronto.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, and then I've been doing a lot of moving around. I was
Okay.
in Waterloo for about 8 years,
Okay.
and then eventually ended up in Ottawa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And for those listening, what Tersha's and what Chris's whole entire life kind of, I would say, evolves around or is guided is basically about, would it be safe to say training and development?
Yeah, training and development, consultation as well is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For the law enforcement community and the security industry.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, amazing. And going to Ottawa again, seeing your facility was very impressive. The magnitude, the size of it, and also just it's a place. You've created an environment for people to come in and basically put skills to the test or sharpen skills that they may not have or develop skills.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, how many years have you been open there in Ottawa?
It would be, I opened January 2020,
Okay. Yeah.
right before COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember you telling us this story. I think, Chris, this might be a good story for people to hear because to me, you launched this just before this thing just blew up.
Yeah, I had no idea. The business plan was all put together. At no point in time does one think, hey, I'm going to include a pandemic, backup plan in there, right?
Yeah.
And so I ended up taking a place in January of 2020, did an opening February 2020, and then 3 weeks later, they announced the pandemic. So all the doors shut until we could all figure out what we were going to do next. And so it went on for quite a bit of time. They're like, all right, so
Right.
I've got this, 16,700 foot facility.
Yeah. To do yoga by yourself.
Yeah, pretty much,
Yeah.
talk to my own shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, but I'll tell you this, Chris. Even this will be like our really like our second time meeting, but we had a really, really good conversation the first time. Your resilience, man, to push forward, because I think it's very safe to say that a lot of people that have been able to kind of get through the pandemic, which was very tough for many businesses, including ourselves, and to see where you're at right now and where you're pushing forward, that resilience is very commendable. And I appreciate what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you're looking at, again, for us, the mindset, you're looking at obstacles and saying, I'm going to get over that obstacle. It's not going to take me out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you said the keyword right there is mindset. Having the proper mindset, especially in tough times, really makes the big difference. And with what we went through in the last 2.5 years here, specifically in Canada, it was tough on a lot of people. So it can be very daunting on some people, and depending on what type of circumstances that they're in, there could be minimal impact, or it could be very large impacts. From various perspectives, especially financially for people who are running businesses, right? So,
Right.
And it's not even just impact on them, but also, for example, if they might have employees, and those employees are also relying on that financial stability as well. And now they're
Yeah.
like, oh, do I have a job? Do I not
Right.
have a job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that uncertainty. I mean, look, you kind of touched on it. Just your journey, your story for Tertia Tactical to be born, to have a home and a new home right now that you're going to be having an open house for. Give us an idea. How did this happen? Okay.
The origin story.
Yeah, like how does it happen? And I say it because, look, people, the majority of people don't love training. That's the truth.
Yeah.
There's a
You're
certain
right.
group of people that do, and they dedicate their lives to it. You're in that pocket, that small circle. So not just trains personally, but you train other people. Okay, and so you've seen it's a challenging space.
Yeah.
That's really hard. And even the people who say like, oh yeah, we need it, man. We need this training. At some point, they still don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so how have you been able to survive and get to a point where, man, your space was huge, it was beautiful, and it was thought out, and your new space is even nicer. And it's like people come along and they think, okay, man, where would I start to get where you've gotten, right?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, like, is there a blueprint? Did you wave a magic wand, or was it a dedication with a mindset to specific things, and then things just kind of unfolded? Like, just give us an idea.
I think a big part of it is what is in demand and what gaps need to be filled. So for me, when you try to find a balance of what gaps need to be filled, demand versus risk, and you kind of figure out, okay, am I willing to take that much risk for this is what's in demand, because is it short-term demand or is it long-term demand? How much do I want to put into this? And how much of a gap do I need to be filled? Am I able to fill this gap, in this sector? So when you kind of sit back and take a look at all of that and balance out all the variables, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Is this something that I can do? Do I have the resources? Do I have, whether it's people power or financials to be able to execute this?
Yeah.
Is it realistic, or is this just a dream? Oh, it'd be great to have this facility, it'd be great to have this dojo or whatever it is. You really have to sit back and say, no, you know what? This isn't a good idea. And at the time, it's like, oh, I think it's a great idea, not knowing that there was, a pandemic looming in the background, right?
Yeah.
But it is what it was. And at the end of that, regardless of the situation that you may come upon or encounter, you have to find a silver lining. Right. And that's a tough part for a lot of people, because again, from what happened over the last 2.5 years, where people get impacted with the different variables, it's like, oh man, this sucks. Or I don't know if I can pull through this. And then now it's just, they just allow themselves to get into that rut and not really claw themselves out of that hole.
Right.
Versus, for example, I'll tell you my thought process. All of this happens and like, dang, this sucks.
Yeah.
All right, what do I need to do? What's my backup plan? What can I do next? How do I adapt? What can I do in the meantime to keep myself afloat and try to get myself out of this hole? And everything from, okay, I got this facility, there's no training happening right now because the government agencies have said, no, we're pausing all training for health and safety reasons, government mandates, limitations, et cetera, et cetera. So what's the next step? Oh, let's do online training. So I set up Tertia Online. So, putting up videos and training videos, working with other instructors, doing training modules and so forth. And at least momentarily, I'm providing some sort of solution for those who choose to continue training. They still have an option.
Yes. Yeah, because they still have an appetite, right, for training.
Yeah.
Just a different means. I'm glad that you said it was online training. I thought you were going to say that you erected the 90s underground rave scene with such a big space. Anyway, sorry.
I could have.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's amazing. And then again, so how did that go doing the online, and where did it kind of take you? I mean, like, there's something you said it so simply about, assessing the needs.
Yeah.
And saying, like, being brutally honest with who you are, looking, with a real clean lens on what's out there.
Yeah.
And then, could I fill the gaps?
Right.
To have the capacity. And you have to be able to say no. I mean, man, we've seen on Dragon's Den and Shark's Tank, they sometimes say, like, this person has no idea the gap. And they cannot fill it. Like, you have no clue how much you're trying to endeavor, and you've just remortgaged your house. Please stop.
Right.
Yeah.
But
like, we hear those stories, and that makes people hesitant. What I love about your story is that you strategically assess these things kind of like with a sober mindset, right? And I'm like, okay, but how do I maximize it?
Yeah.
Right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So when we talk about maximization and being able to execute whatever plan that you might have, and something that I like to approach things with, and people that I instruct, they'll know how I am when I'm teaching something, is keep it simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for example, when we talk about the training facility in itself of keeping it simple, one of the key things was it's raw. It's a warehouse. It's not some fancy, fitness club with nice walls and,
Right.
nice lighting everywhere.
yeah,
and,
yeah.
Eucalyptus towels.
yeah, and beautiful, laminated floors or whatever the
yeah,
case is, right?
yeah.
You guys saw it. It was a raw warehouse.
Yeah.
Actually, the newer place is nicer, actually.
Yeah.
But going back to the first facility, it was raw. So, and what I mean by that is from the CQB, the shoot house structure, it's made out of wood. There's no fancy panels. There's no cameras set up, no fancy lighting. It's a shoot house.
Right.
People go in there to train. They might knock out some walls. I'll put the walls back up. They might rip some doors out. The doors get screwed back in.
Coffee table is
Right.
broken.
because the approach with that on my end was the facility has to be as low maintenance as possible and as self-sustainable as possible, where
Yes.
I could have one person there supervising while agencies are training. And if something breaks or if something needs to get moved around in terms of modularity for the CQB, it can easily be done by one person, maximum two people.
Right.
We're not trying to move all these massive panels where you need, lifts and special equipment to move things around. It's
Right.
like, you know what, a panel falls out, screw it back in.
Right.
Done and done. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that meant get rid of the lighting, get rid of cameras, because anytime technology comes in, there's always
Yeah. Big
a higher
cost too.
propensity
Yeah,
for
yeah,
cost,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but also repair.
Right.
So when I look at, for example, the position that I'm in where I travel a lot to teach seminars, it's difficult for me to be able to go and teach a seminar and then I'll be receiving emails or phone calls and say, hey, the camera system's not working.
Right.
You know,
right.
the lighting system's not working.
Yes.
I didn't want to be bogged down with technology
Yeah.
issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted officers to go in there, train, because the more things that you introduce, the more things will break.
That can
Yes,
go
it's
wrong.
true,
Yeah.
man.
Right,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
means more downtime in training, which
Yeah.
means there's bigger frustration, delays,
Right.
et cetera, and then there's no return of investment for the agency or the instructors
That's
or the
good.
officers
That's good.
themselves.
Yeah.
And so that was the CQB concept in itself. When it came to the mats, it was mats.
Right.
Lay down the mats
Right.
and train on the mats. There's
Right.
nothing fancy
I
about
love
it.
it.
Right.
Classroom, same thing. Here's a TV, here's a whiteboard, there's your tables and chairs.
Yes.
Done.
Yeah, and those who need it will know how to use it.
So let's talk about they. Who would be they? Who would utilize Tersha?
It is directed primarily towards law enforcement agencies, security groups,
Yes.
protective services agencies, and even some units of the military. So basically, anybody that has a need to do any sort of close quarters combatives training,
Yes.
but limited to the indoors because we can't do it outdoors because of where the facility is located. It's
Yes.
right in the city of Ottawa.
Right.
Anybody that can do indoor training can do it in there. So their training would include everything from basic defensive tactics, use of force. It might even just be classroom lectures, and then going into practical if they wanted to integrate the CQB for shoot house for use of force scenarios and things like that.
Yeah.
Those are primarily the groups that would take advantage of something like that.
And to me, everything that I'm hearing is all specialty. Like this is not no basic stuff. This is all specialty training. There's so many firms, security firms and law enforcement firms and agencies and all that are operating today. But I feel that they're operating at a very base level of training. Seeing what you see on a day-to-day basis over the years, do you feel that there is a more demand or a higher need for these groups, agencies, security companies, whatever, to level up?
Level up in terms of what, though?
Level up to adapt, meaning as in, for example, in the security industry, in order for one to get their security guard license, you need to do 40 hours through the ministry to get it. Now, that 40 hours is I'm going to just say it's a joke. It's a joke, and a lot of it does not apply to what the many roles of security do. So, for example, how we were able to address the need is like for us, for people to come to us, they got to do a more specialized training. Yes, we'll do your handcuffs and batons and all that, but when it comes to, like, for example, we do a stay safe program training here, which is like management of resistance behavior, effective communications. So we can argue and say we're doing more than what the industry expects. But to me, I feel that what this industry is asking for as a bare minimum is not enough.
Yeah.
Right. So especially, for example, when it comes to like use of force, which you're an instructor on yourself, like these are the things that I feel like, especially where the world is moving towards right now, need to level up. I'm just wondering if you kind of see that as well, meaning as in, like, should entities look at their training models more seriously and say, we need to start doing this so we can also adapt?
Yeah, absolutely. The security groups need to level up.
Yeah.
The big problem is they don't want to spend the money.
Right.
Whenever there's a cut that happens, it happens within training.
Right.
Training is the first thing that gets cut.
Yeah.
Whether it's reduced hours, whether it's let's shorten this, or if, for example,
minimize equipment.
Minimize equipment, even to the point where, the recruits or the applicants are getting too tired, the program's too tough, let's make the program simpler. So they dummy down and water down the program.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you'll see that a lot
To
within
boost numbers and retention and these other things.
for sure.
Yeah.
And you'll see that a lot happening across the board, where in order to get more applicants, they'll start modifying some of the minimum requirements for applicants to be able to pass, so they can get to, it's a numbers game at the end
You
of the day.
widen the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you widen the gate.
Oh, for sure.
Which has nothing, is the complete opposite of having a standard,
Yeah.
right? And saying that the training has to be of a certain caliber.
Yeah. So when it comes to leveling up in training, there are very few security companies that I've dealt with and worked with where, this company wants to invest in their guards, in their staff. They want the best of the best training, or they want advanced training, or they want to be able to implement some sort of, every 3 months, we're going to do a workshop to keep the guards engaged.
Right.
Keep them hungry for more.
Right.
And when you keep an employee hungry and invest in them, they see that.
Right.
Because they see it as, oh, wow, Constantine and Mike really care about me. They're actually putting money into me for me to learn more, which means they value me as an individual. They value me as an employee. I'm more likely to stick around.
That's good, man.
But some company owners don't like to do that because they're scared that if we invest in this individual here, well, now he's got those skills and now he can walk out and he's going to leave and go somewhere else, and he's taking that
We've
skills.
heard that hundreds of times.
For sure.
Yeah. And what's going to stop them? What if they leave? What if they do this? Now you've just created these these wonderful pieces and assets to the industry, and they have no loyalty to you.
Yeah.
They're not going. It's kind of missing the relationship there, or just if you have a really good culture, and if it's not just like a one-off, and it's like if they know, at this company they value training, I'm going to always have training opportunities. Our thought has always been to create something where people wouldn't consider to leave, right? You know what I mean? Like, not contractually putting a ball and chain on them. Create a place that they want to come. I mean, when you saw our space, we kind of said we always wanted the space people could kind of come and hang, and we make a joke about having good Wi-Fi, and if you want to take the mats and roll around or whatever, right? Like, because good things come from that. So I want to ask you, how do you navigate through that mentality when you know they need it? You know that you've built something that can fill the gap, and they still hesitate. They still say no. They still do the thing where I'm just going to try to get by for this next year.
Until something bad happens.
Yeah, I know. And again, they fail to make the investment,
Yeah.
assessing their own need, even when they ask. I mean, even still, we know people, even when they do need it, it's like, well, can you do it cheaper? Can you do it like this? And they're constantly, everyone's constantly trying to avoid, because they're only thinking dollars out.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So a life of training is pouring in, emptying the cup, pouring in. So it's almost like a complete opposite type of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate that? And give us a message to the industry on why does training really matter?
It's providing perspective to the individual. So, for example, if you guys were looking at training and you had approached me and said, "Hey, Chris, we're looking at doing this, but can you do it for this much? We don't really want to pay that much, or you're too expensive," which I get a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to offer you perspective. I hear what you're saying. Times are tough. You guys are trying to recover from COVID, whatever the case may be in terms of the industry, right? not medically, but I'll offer the perspective. Like, okay, I just want to let you know that this is what I'm able to offer you, because from what I can see, where it may enhance your operation, where it may enhance your guard skills, it might augment what they currently have. This is where I can fill that gap for you guys. And here are the things that I can offer over a period of time. Here are things that you might not already have, that you might not have thought about, that we could include,
Right.
that in the long run, the bigger picture is it'll be a good return of investment because, for example, what I'm teaching is not just techniques. It'll be, trying to teach the guards about legal responsibilities, legal authorities.
Yeah.
It'll be
It's
teaching them.
education.
It's the full process of, for example, arrest, control, and custody.
Yeah.
It's not just here's how to put handcuffs on and
Right.
that's
Yeah.
it.
So
That's the end of
really
that.
knowing your authorities. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And that is often a very big gap where
Yeah.
the legal side of things and the legal education aspect of it isn't often taught.
Yeah.
Right.
We've seen that if people don't understand their authorities, they hesitate.
But do you know why it's not taught often, and it doesn't go into depth?
Why?
Because it's boring,
Interesting.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when an instructor comes in and has to teach, for example, a security group, they're generally only given 1 day, maybe 2 days.
Right.
There's not very many where security companies are going to say, "Hey, Chris, come in and do a 5-day course with our security guards." Very, very rare, right? So for me, I have to look at that as in the 8 hours or the 16 hours that I have with this team or this company, this is what I need to fit in.
Right.
Nobody's going to want to spend 3 hours on the use of force model and the Trespass to Property Act.
Yeah.
Guess what? I do.
Yeah.
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 That is part of my course. I
Right.
do spend half a day of day one, and at the end of it all, I will explain it to a company and say, look, this is what day one is about. If you want to do, for example, takedowns, you want to include expandable batons, this is how long the course is going to be.
Yeah.
Well, we only have this much and we can't do this because of the guard schedule. I'm like, well, then we can do day one and day two, and then we can set up expandable baton on a separate day. But I will not shave off the program for the sake of not explaining in depth the legal responsibilities, because that is where it starts. If the guards don't know what their legal responsibilities are, they don't know if they should make the arrest or not.
And
They don't know what they're enforcing.
What you're saying, where the such of the value and the importance is, when someone is in a situation and they do something that does bring them to court, okay, whether it's their fault or not, and it comes time to training, right? It's not going to be like, yeah, I just did a course and yeah, we talked about an hour around this or half an hour use of force. It will almost discredit the entire aspect of the course. Like, well, what kind of course is this if you're only talking about use of force for half an hour? What did you really learn? Can you articulate what you learned? You know
That's
what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
So to me, that is the value. And the way I would look at it is that, what can I do to make myself as strong as possible from a defense perspective if I am tested? Right. And that's really what training comes down to is you're training for something for the day that you're about to get tested. And it may happen or may not, but let's lean on the side of like, if it doesn't happen, at least you're there to prepare yourself for if something does go down.
Yeah, you don't know how good the training is until it does get tested.
Absolutely.
Right? We can all say
Absolutely.
with
That's
constructors-
exactly it.
Yeah. No, I know. And I think that's one of the other sides. I was talking to a gentleman, I won't say his name, but a high-level K9, and had a privilege through Jimmy Bremner, who introduced us.
Yeah.
And he works with K9s out of the UK. Robert Steele, amazing guy, okay? And he was telling me in our conversation how difficult it has been for him coming to the Canadian market for people to value high-level police dogs that do a sweep, that sniff for explosives. And it all came down to standard.
Yeah.
Standard and training and taking the time to understand what the service is and what it offers.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, so is it because we're so like obsessed with clocks and we're constantly always checking our time? Is that why? Is it because time is money, or do you think that the industry just doesn't really care about the training and they're only doing it as lip service to appease an insurance claim or something? I mean, I'm just curious your experience because we're from a business side.
Yeah.
You're from the side that supports all these businesses.
Yeah.
And like, where do these conversations die out?
Yeah, it's multiple things. So on top of money, the spending aspect of it, on top of, for some, not caring,
So just straight up not caring.
right? Because sometimes
you got to respect that guy. At least he's telling you what he really thinks.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
and that's kind of one of those where having the right person at the right place at the right time, where the decision maker if they come from a training background, it's something that they enjoy,
Yes.
you are more likely to get support.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Very
person who ends up getting promoted and is sitting in that decision-making chair, who doesn't care about training, you likely will not get that support.
Right.
Right. So that's one of the aspects there. And then the other one is just standards overall. So what a lot of people don't know, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's out there anyways. Here in the province of Ontario, there is no mandate of who can be a use of force instructor.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's
So
no, there's no,
anybody can. Wow.
We know this for executive protection. Just
Yeah.
didn't know that specifically for use of force.
yeah.
Okay.
An individual can go and take a course or not, and maybe just watch a bunch of YouTube videos and think that they understand use of force, they understand the application of legal responsibilities, whatever,
Wow.
whatever subject matter it is.
So like, there's no governing body.
Yeah.
Not really.
Interesting.
No, I mean we have the Solgen
Yeah.
that oversees the security industry, right, and the
Right.
security guard testing and the licensing.
Right.
But when it comes to security instructors or who can be a use of force instructor here in this province, there's no mandate of who can.
Right.
Someone can self-designate themselves because they think they know, which is where the Dunning-Kruger effect comes into play, and say, hey,
Yeah.
you know what, I think I know enough, or I've convinced myself that I know enough. I'm going to start doing this because it's great to be in a position of authority. It's great to be making said money.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of money in it,
Yeah.
to be
Right.
honest with you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very cutthroat industry because now, for example, myself, I am competing with other instructors who don't have the same level of experience, field time, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And when you have security companies that now see this promotion that's being put on by an instructor, hey, if you come do our course, we'll give you free handcuffs or free
Right.
notebooks or whatever.
Right.
Oh, this is great. Oh, they can do the course in 6 hours and we don't have to send our guards in for
Yeah.
16 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they're looking at, is the time.
Yeah.
So, hey, you know what? There's your tick in the box. We've sent our guards off to a course for 6 hours, done and done. We don't
Right.
really care about the quality of it.
Yeah, I mean, and no one's there, no outside entities there to assess it or
No,
to
not
put a
at all.
stamp of approval. So basically, anyone who can get people to listen to them, then they've won.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we lose as an industry
Yeah.
because there's nothing standardized.
That's
Okay?
right.
Okay, so let me ask you. So with all that, navigating that, what does the security industry need to wake up to? Okay, and how could you in one way make it a better place? Okay, where security companies woke up and thought, we're going to prepare for tomorrow. Okay,
Yeah.
and we're going to do that by investing in our people who do the frontline work and face the difficult scrutiny and incidents and obstacles and challenges of the field of working with the public. And I mean, like, do you ever see it getting to that place? And is there government intervention or resources that undergird it somehow? I'm just curious again. Or do you think that this is only going to happen in the private sector? That it's like, if this is ever going to happen, it's going to happen in the private sector, and only so few companies will say yes to it, and they'll invest the dollars, and they'll see the fruit down the road. 10
Yeah.
years later, you'll see, like, that's what made the difference with these companies, because 10 years ago they took it seriously and they invested in their people. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
you were right on point with that. So, when you ask me the question of will there be a change, I want to say positively yes, there will
Yeah.
be.
So do I. But
When?
yeah.
Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came from the security industry and I've seen how things have transpired. I came in before there were security licenses,
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
right? So,
yeah,
so
so-
when we had to get security,
Well, everyone had criminal records. right? Yeah. There was a time, right? It was like, yeah, you like to bust in some teeth? Perfect. Come work at the bar. Right?
Yeah. you know, so a lot of that really comes from standards. There's a lack of standards and the control of standards of what's out there in the industry. So it might be one thing to say, hey, this is our standard. You must have X amount of hours taught within a year to be an instructor. And you must have had X amount of years experience as a security guard to be a security instructor, for example. That might be your base standard. But if there is no quality assurance on that for those applying, or is it just, oh yeah, they met all the requirements when they submitted their application, good enough, good to go, they're now a standardized instructor
yeah.
under the province, right?
Approved. Yeah.
Approved, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. So, if they're going to fall through the cracks, you're right back to square one. And then, all this time and money would have been spent on creating this process that really didn't mean anything. It was
Right.
just kind of to say, hey, we did it. We got something done.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that is where it's going to be a key piece where if the province does anything like that, there has to be quality control. And when it comes down to standardization, so something that I'm doing this fall is I'm actually running a 15-day instructor's course in use of force and defensive tactics, and it is geared towards law enforcement instructors. And the reason why I did that is because there's a number of law enforcement agencies that, they're smaller. They're not the big police services or an actual police services, but they are in an enforcement capacity where they may not have instructors themselves, or they might have one instructor but with no actual oversight.
Okay.
So the reason why I set up this program, this 15-day program, is an opportunity for these smaller agencies to basically, send their instructors in or be able to work with partnering agencies and say, hey, you're all trained under that one program under
Yeah.
Tertia Tactical. We now have a standardized defensive tactics program. Everybody's trained the same way. We're going to run a recruit course of 6 enforcement officers. Constantine, you're
Yep.
certified in that. We don't have an instructor. Could we get you on secondment, or can we pay you X amount of time to come and teach us?
Right.
For whatever number of days.
Right.
Because that is a standard we want. We just can't afford to have our own instructor. So they're
Okay.
able to draw from a pool of the instructors that would be participating in this standardized program.
That's good, man.
And so, okay, I see many different ways to fill the gap now. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this: you obviously said you do a lot of teachings basically across the world. When you see, for example, how law enforcement security is looked at in the U.S. Opposed to how we are in Canada here, do you see big differences?
Yeah, there is a difference. So one of the non-differences are, the ways sometimes people don't like the security industry, don't like security guards,
Right.
and the stigma that's around that. It's the same down in the United States too,
Okay.
right? The difference though is, for example, down in the U.S., there's security capacity. Some of them are armed.
Yes.
It's a very different
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah.
But the availability of training out there and their mentality, depending on the state, they are more open to training.
Okay.
You will have organizations that are all about, hey, let's all come home safe. Let's all make it home. Let's send our guys to training. Let's go do the
Right.
firearms course. Let's go do this. Let's send them on this course.
Right.
They're a little bit, more open to that than here, where I found, over time, everybody's very siloed, or they're stuck in the classic adage of, we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So-
we've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've always done it this way. We don't want to change the way we've done handcuffing. We don't want to change the way we've done takedowns, whatever the case is. And well, you know what? At some point, things have to modify and adapt with the times.
That's right.
Okay, are you explaining someone, as you were saying to me last week, someone who is adamant about using their VCR, essentially, right? I've always used the VCR,
yeah.
right? I won't have Blu-rays. I won't go on streaming networks. I'm gonna have my VHS tapes. I'm gonna use a VCR, right, to the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so evolve or die, essentially, as they say, right?
Yeah.
But you know what the funny thing is, a lot of the stuff that you're suggesting, I've heard about as well. There's practices that we do here that are very, like I've seen some very old teachings that are not, have not evolved, right? Mankind has evolved, criminal activity has evolved. So why isn't training involving with it for a lot of the thinking here? You know what I mean? So I agree with you. I've seen kind of, and it could be very frustrating to kind of go down those conversation
Yeah.
pieces as individuals.
Yeah.
Especially when some of those individuals could represent some very large forces, for example, or companies here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really comes down to leadership, I think, and how they look at things. Like, having that vision.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it too has to do with, at least from my experience of these interactions, is the personal chemistry, right? I could walk in, or we could meet each other at a trade show or a conference, and if you and I don't get along, as me as the instructor and you as the security company owner, and we don't vibe right off the bat by me trying to offer you my perspective on training, and you don't buy into that, then it'll never happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because there's something about you or me that just didn't vibe at that time, and it just never comes to fruition. And it could
Yeah.
be as simple as like, man, I really didn't like that guy's hair. I thought he was really arrogant. You know, that was your perception, or that was my perception, and
Right.
it just doesn't fly, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That's good.
you know,
Yeah.
so I approaching people and trying to understand who they are, understanding, having some basic understanding of their personality, having some basic understanding about the company, their
Yeah.
clientele,
Yeah.
you know, helps me offer, here's the perspective of what I'm able to offer you guys in terms of training. This is how it's going to benefit you, not benefit me. How does it benefit you? What's in
know-
it for you guys?
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to throw out there because it's possible. Sometimes people don't know. Jesse Owens, I think it was at the 30s or 40s. You know, it was not thought that someone could run a mile in 5 minutes, right? He eventually did. Doctors had said that his lungs would burst. No human could run the mile in less than 5 minutes. So he does it. I forget which year. Apologies, I forget the year. And then they say that within the next year after him breaking it, people in high school started. About 100 people broke it, and they ran it within 5 minutes. And then literally now, like high schoolers in our day and age do it on the regular all the time. And the only thing that changed was belief. It was believed that a human could not run that fast, or they would break. I say that because I want to say we know of companies and individuals and organizations who have put the money in, and there's a return.
Yeah.
Okay. And the return isn't just like you put $1 and $3 comes back.
Yeah.
Look at it like a garden. You know, the easiest way I can explain it, if you look and you plant some seed, and you have to sacrifice to get that seed. No one's just giving it to you. Okay. Anyone can go into a grocery store and just pluck what they have with a couple of dollars. But if you were to invest to get seed, put down some type of infrastructure to actually and to farm it and to grow it and water it, you might have a crop. You might have something like, look what's growing there. I mean, like, I can't say what it is, but Constantine tapped me on the shoulder just yesterday saying, like, a client's contacting us about XYZ.
Yes.
And it's like, there's just these things come up, and they think like, we like your thinking, we like what you're about, we saw your team, we kind of brushed you on a training, we saw you in Miami here, and it's like the people who want it because they're so careful of every dollar, and it's kind of like a poverty mentality. They'll never enjoy a garden. Isn't it true? Right? They'll always be looking in their pockets and thinking, I don't know. And this is what I wanted to say is, fight for that budget, man. If you're some security director, or you have some type of authority, or you run a company, set aside something. Try it. Okay. Keep saying it every time. Try to get a little bit more. Say, can I take my best at least? Take the top most committed people. Maybe it's 5 out of the 500. Can we pour into them somehow? Can we get them exposure to this? Can we bring them into wherever it is? You know what I'm saying? And then let's just see if we see growth in them. If there's growth in them, maybe there could be growth with the team as a whole. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right?
To what you said earlier, which I think is the person that makes the decision maker to put a training budget. I mean, for anything, for any company. I've had so many meetings with clients, and you're trying to find out who the decision maker is. And when I find the decision maker is shutting it down and they don't have a single lick of understanding of what they're getting, they're just looking at it solely from a number perspective only. That to me is like where the disconnect happens. It's like, okay, let me educate you now, right? And sometimes I find that a lot of these directors who are trying to really work with their accounting, payroll officers and kind of really push it, like, I can see their frustration sometimes, because sometimes an organization may say, no, we want it, Chris, we want to bring you guys in. But the
CFO doesn't
our
sound
CFO
off.
is shutting it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Happens a lot.
And I think the CFO, many times, maybe that's a podcast, CFO is doing a disservice to their organizations.
Yeah, I know. Just stop being in the cottage all the time.
Yeah.
and get an understanding of what people really go through.
Right.
So then how do you get through? I'll ask you that.
Yeah. So for me, what I find is that we're getting to a point now in our society where I don't think you can literally just get by on crumbs anymore. Meaning as in like, we're getting tested all the time now. Things are elevating, things are escalating. You talk to the police agencies, they'll tell you crime has surged. Like, and there's little things, for example, that will create that. I mean, we talked to a person representing Toronto Police just earlier this week, and he was referencing that since the police now have abolished carding, they've seen right now a surge of like 150,000 something cases of guns now have kind of come back into the mix because just by eliminating carding, for example. So it's like the butterfly effect to eliminating something. And I think the more you start strapping someone down and saying that you do not have a budget for this, something will happen where you go back and say you could have saved all this. So it's almost like your job could be on the line as a CFO if you didn't make that right decision. Now, what I would do, Chris, what I do is that I try to, like, even though a decision maker is a CFO for most cases, I try to go sometimes when I find the walls are being hit above that person, right? On the value element, but that's hard. That's very hard because sometimes it's like why are you talking to me? Talk to him. That's what he's in his place for. Sometimes it's one of those things where you can just hit that wall and just move on to the next person they can, and that's where we found us is like. We say this within our services. We provide a high level service that many other companies don't really specialize in. And that's fine. But we do find the clients that do have the taste for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of them, but they are out there. And then we put all our energy to those clients. And the hopes is that through time, others will see, okay, look what they're doing over there. That's different. Let's do this. And I think that is part of the solution as well is, just finding the people that can, bring them together, and then just building and building. And I think it could be a very, very long time before we see that. But
you kind of build it in faith. You don't know. When you plant the seed, do you really know?
No.
You have no idea. It's so much more convenient to just go to the grocery store and just get what you need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's such an easy exchange. The kind of what Constantine was saying, it's a quote that we know. We say it often. Simon Sinek has a quote, "Don't do business with people who need what you have. Do business with people who believe what you believe." And that's the strongest bond. So again, it might just be one of 100 companies that also believes it. Start from there.
Right.
Like I think if we were back in high school and we really wanted to start a chess club, let's just start playing chess.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? And then it's that simple thing, right? Or you do some Kali in the field or whatever, right? People will start to join.
You know what else I find works, Chris? I think the power of media works well. So, for example, showing people what you're going to be getting, right? And even showing testimonials of individuals and how they're dealing with situations. I think that also helps as well.
Yeah.
So that's why, for
You know
us,
what? That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think
because there's so much talking, but if they can see it, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, using a tool such as media,
Right.
that would basically be language.
Okay.
Yes.
So the reason why I asked, what would you do and how would you approach an individual who, for example, has set up a wall, and how do you get through that? For me, whenever I encounter a situation like that, is to try, and I mentioned this earlier, is to try to have a basic understanding of that person. What are they about? So what I mean by that is, if the person you're dealing with is very analytical and they're all about numbers, it's a CFO, they see numbers.
Right.
You talk to them in numbers. You talk to them in figures, right?
Their language.
Their language,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
If a person, for example, in the government, at least the different departments that I've worked in, we're all about PowerPoints. So everything I did
It had to
to
be.
propose
That
as
was
a
their
business case
language.
proposal
Very
was
true.
PowerPoint.
Okay.
That's how they understood it.
Right.
It
Yeah.
wasn't doing, a 50-page report, situational analysis on something.
Yeah.
It was a PowerPoint,
Right.
right, with key points, with a supporting document in detail, right?
Right.
So, and then that's how you get through to people, because if you speak their language, they understand. Oh,
That's good.
Oh, I get this. And then now it's like you've sparked some interest because you're speaking their language.
That's right.
But if I went in there and just started talking,
Yeah.
right, about here's what we do, this is what I do, this is how I teach, I'm not speaking their language. They're
Exactly.
hearing something completely different,
Exactly.
which is, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. No,
Yeah,
if you approach it, be
exactly.
like, hey, listen,
Yeah.
out of curiosity, how much claims or losses did you have to pay out last year? Oh, X, Y, Z dollars. What if I told you we can reduce those claims
Right.
by just bringing this in? You're right. And once you start going down that road with them, they start seeing it in a different way.
That's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Listen,
so good.
There's a lot. I think a lot
Yeah.
that CFOs. This is for you. Okay. So Chris, just kind of like just to kind of close with going back. So there is an event happening on October 27th,
Yeah.
and this would want to call this like the grand opening, or would you call this just like or something, or just an event that you're having for
Open house.
open
Well,
house?
yeah, I'm calling it a kind of a second grand opening because
Yeah.
I did move the training facility to another location, literally the other side of the wall, and it's a much better location. So I actually dubbed it as Open House 2.0.
Okay.
Oh, I like it. That's
Yeah,
nice.
Open House 2.0, and it's also a mini trade show. So it's to kind of reignite, everything now that the pandemic is kind of on a wayside now, and the industry is resuming some sort of normalcy in training. So for them to say, hey, let's go check out the new training facility, and at the same time be also be able to visit the vendors and exhibitors that are going to be there. So
Nice.
so that's where I've invited a number of exhibitors to basically set up their booths and whatnot to highlight the latest products that they have that would be applicable for law enforcement and security, but also have an opportunity to walk around a CQB.
Nice.
And that's on October 27th. And I guess at some point you guys will fire up a link on there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
for anybody that wants to exhibit or wants to attend, how do they go about doing that? Where do they go visit to find that information?
Yeah, you can find all the registration links in the schedule on tirsatactical.com. So it's TIRSIA tactical.com.
Okay.
And you'll find the links on there. But what this is really leading towards is for next year, I'm actually planning a full trade show and conference at the training facility where it'll basically be
Nice.
a full list of exhibitors there. We're gonna be running congruent seminars and be inviting various instructors to come in and teach seminars throughout the day. So it'll be different because unlike other trade shows and conferences where you just have the booths and maybe some demonstrations
Yeah.
of something, I actually have a CQB shoot house right in the
Yes,
facility.
which is
So
amazing. Yeah.
it really opens up a lot of different training opportunities for
right there.
anybody that wants to attend and hang out for the day and
And I
things
think
like
I think
that.
what makes this event especially significantly different too is that maybe there'll be like a live podcast going on at
Hey
the
man,
same
that
time.
would
Who
be
knows?
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you have any room for,
No, for
that,
sure.
possibly
Yeah.
we can bring this table to Ottawa.
No, look,
Lots of
Chris,
space.
I want to really thank you for coming down. For anybody listening today, a law enforcement agency, security firm, anybody that wants to increase their skill level and get training to their organization, I implore you to reach out to Chris, Tertia Tactical. We will have links up for everyone to kind of connect to, but I think it's important that we look at more than ever before. This is the time to really invest in yourself,
Yeah.
give yourself that skill above the rest, give yourself that way so you can navigate through a scenario. And I can tell you this, Chris is the real deal. I think you guys should just really pour in and read what is on there and what you can bring from this. And I'm actually looking forward to it. I actually, October 27th sounds like a great day.
Yeah.
that'd be good.
I know.
to come
When you
down.
said the date, it rang in my ears like, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, just want to say, Chris, about you, your track record speaks for itself.
Yes.
Okay, this is something. You're not a sales guy.
Yeah.
You're definitely not a sales guy. But what I love about what you were just saying, you're a strategist, and it makes sense because you see a need, you listen, you fill it with a gap. You can trust that, right? Like it's not just about like, just trying to sell them. You're not selling ice to the Eskimo. Is that bad to say? Right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. Okay,
yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
80s
Yeah.
analogy. Okay, but like, so you have it. You've seen it. You're vetted by so many different people. We've met some amazing people on the other side of the border that are close associates with you, and they all live a life of training. This is what they do. They're always sweaty.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
sweaty.
Yeah.
Always sweaty, right? And I mean, it's imperative to like you follow the people that are always sweaty if you're trying to grow and train.
Yeah.
Right? Those that from the comfort of a high chair tell you their expertise as a self-erected guru. We've learned now you don't trust that. Right? You know what I mean? Like that insight that there's so much more when someone can show you what it takes. And I think we look forward to like maybe even just seeing you. We've never had a chance to train with you and being in a training environment specifically, but maybe that's something we should look at as well.
100%.
Yeah,
cool, man.
yeah.
We're always growing. No ego
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's right,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Chris, thank you for your time, man.
No,
Really
thank you
appreciate
for
it.
inviting me,
Can't wait
guys.
for people to hear this and just get that training level up.
No, I really appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
all
you.
good.
Thank
man.
you guys.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Peace.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.